Man, there is a lot to talk about this week. A lot going on. We got inflation. We got looming recession. We got the $6 billion loan forgiveness for Corinthian College. We have Johnny Depp trial. We have so much going on. Pride Month. We're going to bring all that to you and more as we get in. But before we do, I want to talk to you about a couple things. First of all, if you haven't signed up on dailyfreedom.org, go over there now. Sign up. We're going to give you encouraging videos to help you strengthen your values of faith, family, and freedom, as well as encourage you in your daily walk with the Lord. So that said, go over and sign up at dailyfreedom.org, and let's jump in.
And I think it's important you said that we talk about our faith, family, and freedom in Christ. Yeah. Or if you're not a believer, faith, family, and freedom in our patriotism, or at least our citizenship, and our love of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could take that both ways. Well, I want to talk about something I've told you guys. So that's going to hit in on inflation and in on something that could lead into a recession. You know, last year my daughter got engaged in January of 2020. December 2021, and it was a great thing in our house. And we've been planning, and she gets married tomorrow. And I asked my wife the other day, I go, honey, did we stay on budget? And she said, no. And
Were you surprised?
No, but I just had to ask a question. Yeah. And I said, so over or under? She said, over. And I figured that because of where we're at.
Well, and it's a wedding.
Not with us.
We never lower that.
Well, what it is it's substantially higher. We're almost 30% higher on our budget. And it's because, last year we had to contract with people, DJ, photographer, videographer, you've got all that, wedding venue site. You've got also goods.
So now going over budget, is that in part because you guys just went above and beyond, or because the cost of goods?
Yeah, but if you were in contract, how are they
you've got
the price on that?
Well, I don't know, but with me, I feel that we're, we need to be flexible with people's. I'm not going to sit there and hold somebody to a contract.
That's tough.
If they're being affected by the economy and what's happening.
Yeah.
So as we're 30% above, the next question I asked my wife ago, have we kept our tithing up to the kingdom of God? And that may not be something that you're into, but what I found out is important is it matters in my walk with the Lord, because Matthew 6:33 says that if you seek God's kingdom and his righteousness, he takes care of everything. Yep. And my wife said, yes, we are, and we're going to be okay. But we went up 30%. And I don't have an exact number, but I mean, we may be over 30%. So I mean, it's just the fact that as you go and you shop, we went to Costco yesterday to pick up. We're not getting extravagant with our stuff either. I mean, I got my best friends helping us with his venue. So we're budget on this wedding, but we're also doing the best that we can.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so we didn't go out and just keep throwing money at something. We're being very diligent on what we want. We want to give my daughter and my new son-in-law the best experience they can have.
That's like life across the board right now.
It is.
Everybody is just feeling the pain in some way, shape, or form at some area in their life.
Well, let's talk about areas of your life. So I wasn't a cat person until I'm a daughter dad. You're a daughter dad, Mike. You've got a daughter. So as a daughter dad, I've only my girls are at my house, so I ended up being a cat person because they love cats. We were up to 3 cats at one point. We're down to 2. So we haven't. My wife has not been able to find the cat food that they like. We all know cats are finicky. That's one thing that doesn't keep a lot of guys in on loving cats. But Rocky and Zuri have come to live with this, and their food has been like in MIA. And my wife's like, well, it's really weird because if you go to a pet store, or something, cat food, dog food, they're not readily available as they used to be. So my cats went on a hunger strike.
Yeah.
So my daughters have come home.
Because they haven't had their normal food.
Yeah. And so it's okay until my daughters come home and they're saying the cats look like they lost weight. Are they okay? Are they sick?
And then you get the 21 questions.
So my wife called me the other day, and it was a big event in her life, where she goes, I found the cat's food.
Yeah.
I was like, no way. She goes, but it's up $12 from what it was.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm not saying that's poor me, because some people are without baby formula.
Well, it's baby formula, it's cars, it's
gas,
it's cat food, it's gas, it's
diesel,
it's meat periodically, it's toilet paper.
Well, and then the other day, regarding this inflation thing, right? The Fed comes out and says, "Oh, we have a plan for inflation. We're not going to tell you what it is because we don't actually know, But we have a plan to curtail the inflation, but yet we're going to spend $6 billion on student loan forgiveness. We're going to send billions over to
and that's a
other
tough
countries.
one for me. I didn't go to school.
We did. We just finished paying off Ludavia's student loan debt.
Yeah.
But guess what? Who paid for that? I did.
So I didn't go to college. I wouldn't go to college if I could do it over again.
I agree with that. But
I'm not saying it's not
point.
for some people. Like, I have one daughter. She's mentioned she wants to be a teacher. Yeah, that's going to require college.
Sure.
I have
It's require
another
credentials
daughter.
and license and things.
I have another. She said something about a doctor. I'm like, you better get good at golf. But the reality is we get to make decisions, right? Yeah. And it just, I don't know, it gives you this entitlement. Like, what about the future people getting ready to go to college? Well, hey, who's going to pay for ours? Yep. Or what about the people that just paid theirs off? And they're like, okay, wait, could we get a reimbursement check? How about people like me who it's like, okay, well, since I didn't go to college, could I just get an extra, like, I don't know, $50,000 since I didn't need it for my career?
Right.
You want to be credited for that, or tax deduction.
It's my, yes. And that, gosh.
Sometimes tax deductions are as well as, money in your account.
I saw this thing, and I'd almost get behind this way before anything else, but it's like, you choose to go to school. And this could be like a 45-minute discussion.
Yep.
But you choose to go to school, right? But you have to realize, like...
I did. I mean, it benefited me.
And it's a choice, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it benefits some. But like right now, in my generation, half of the people I went to high school with, half the people I'm friends with, they went to school and then leave college and don't even get a job in the line of schooling that they went to. Totally different.
The profession I'm in now, and I've been in for 26 years, is not in line with my degree.
Right.
My second profession was, which I was there 16 years.
Sure.
But
well, you at least got 16 years of that.
Well, a lot of it just gets you in your foot in the door. Kyle and Mike, we all know that it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that if you haven't learned that one, it takes relationships, and we all know that. And relationships are the thing that keep you going. Well, what I think is, with the Corinthian colleges, I mean, there was 110,000 students at their peak in 2010. So it's a for-profit school, but we're only hitting a fraction of the students that are out there with student loans.
And I think they ran a survey. The people that are going to reap the reward of this are the upper middle class anyways. So they're not helping necessarily these people that, like, literally they didn't even have parents to help them get, like, they scrounged.
I agree. It's one of the things that I always brag on with the Cal State University Bakersfield. They have a preschool that 70% of their kids were going there on scholarship because it was single moms getting an education.
Absolutely.
And I just think kudos to President Lanesley and the E.J. Callahan, which we know very well out at Cal State. They do a great job to allow that to, because you got a state licensed preschool. It costs you money to keep it open. And they just aren't waiving those, but it's people that are doing something, working extra hard, being creative, that are finding ways to be able for students to afford to go there. Yeah. And here in the case of single moms.
Yeah, I guess in short, I don't know. If you make a decision, you should stand by it. You don't get to just like inherit tons of debt.
Bible says yes is yes and your no is no.
Sure. Yeah.
And consider a cost before you build.
But I think for me, like, the big thing is, hey, we have this huge deficit. We have this huge debt load in the country, and yet we're spending money on stuff like that when people like me or people like you don't get to benefit from that. And then
it's not even like a woe is me, I need money. It's like, no.
Right. No.
We need to instill things in people that are like, hey, pony up.
Self-reliance.
You went to school,
Self-reliance.
Both my daughters, they knew their responsibility, and they both went to college. They have student loans, but they also did a great job getting scholarships. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody that doesn't have some form of student loan, especially a federal student loan, that is going to school.
Yeah.
You get, sometimes those happen, even when you're getting athletic scholarships or academic scholarships, which there's a lot of opportunity in both those. My one daughter played tennis in college. My other daughter she got academic scholarships. So did both of them. But there was a mixture, and they had to go out and apply for grants and scholarships.
Good, and it should be done that way.
Yeah,
You did a good job.
There needs to be a hustle.
Yeah.
And I think people appreciate hustles because you're both employers, and so am I. Technically, through the church, I mean, there's employees that work for us. I mean, I'm not like hiring them all the time. Sometimes it's our administrator, but there's a responsibility there too. I do believe that.
Yeah, but the point being, like, we're spending all of this money in all these different areas, right? So we got that $6 billion, we got $40 billion in this war that, like we were talking about earlier. Is,
well,
like, is that
we're
a
actually like
proxy
50
war
billion now? But
yeah, is that a proxy war for the U.S.?
I always like to assume there's like, because you just think about things, you're like, there's no way that like people could just be just this oblivious.
You want to believe there's a greater good.
Well, you want to think that there must be something behind the scenes.
I hate to see bullies. And as you see this war, Russia versus Ukraine, you think that one is overwhelming the other, and everybody else is coming in and pitching in resources for the underdog. And I think the resources they've pitched in, I think Ukraine is still having to put out the moxie, put out the fight, and they're doing a great job holding off a superpower. But you have the United States and you have the NATO nations that are kicking in some dough and arms.
Not even some. Like, that's a large $40 billion on the last spend.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, when you have a country as finicky as ours is right now, with inflation, with oil, gas, I mean, with a nation that's kind of on the cusp of like struggling. The American families are, I know majority are, and you're just signing checks at $40 billion. I don't know.
I just have
Are we secretly fighting a war against Russia? Like, is that what's going on here? Is this their way of saying, like, okay, we could never actually launch a full-scale attack, so let's just fund someone who will? Like, is that has to be what's going on?
Well, and then, as you just talked about gas prices, we get oil from some of these countries. And I just drove to LA and back, and and so it took a whole tank of gas. And I remember, basically it cost me $200.
Yeah.
To just drive to LA and back to help my daughter
you
move.
can just buy an electric car. Ask the current administration. Buy an electric car. Don't do it from Elon Musk, they'll tell you.
Well, my last...
the one making the best electric cars.
My last rant was I had an electric car.
Right.
And it wasn't practical. Now, I know I had one 5 years ago. Things are a lot better now. I understand that. But as I'm there, I'd like to talk to people who have hybrids.
Yeah.
Now, I think that is a reasonable mix. I get that. I mean, I don't think you could, like we talked about last week, you can't just cut one natural resource out
the hybrid.
And just go straight to all natural, which we all know that there's issues with that. Right. And it's great to say we're going to get there, and I think we will, and I think it'll be better for the economy.
Yeah.
But I just think we're not there yet. And to double the I don't know if you got a diesel vehicle out there. I don't know how that's happening. Because some of the parts of the country, diesel's up to like $8 a gallon.
It's high.
Imagine the truckers.
Yes, I mean that's why just cat food goes up.
Yeah.
And then I see my cost of the weddings going up, and it's just natural spending as as we're out there.
But we're sending all this money, billions of dollars in all of these areas that is prioritized, right? Who knows, right? But then we could be spending that to protect our children, right? Which brings us to the gun conversation we've had, and really, I think, hey, we're spending it over here because gun safety is not their priority. It's like an ulterior motive. So that's I think that's where they're going with that.
Well, all we hear is AR-15,
right?
And what we do know is it's a gun of choice. For a lot of the mass shootings, but there are other weapons out there. You and I were talking about the M1 carbine.
Well, when you hear a lot of the people that are in gun control, promoting gun control, gun safety, and all this stuff, most of them are so vastly uneducated about
they know nothing about.
I mean,
guns.
to make
nothing.
a statement like
I can
Joe Biden made the other day,
AR-15.
I can blow a hole through someone's chest with a 9mm.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
You and I have both shot. You shot a 9mm. Like, no, that's not going to happen.
My 9mm is considered my small gun.
Right. It is. It's like the smallest caliber weapon that the law enforcement even uses.
And this is how out of touch Biden is. He thinks that a 22 is safer than a 9mm. When in reality, I just checked this with a good firefighter buddy. He goes, yeah, we see more deaths by a 22 by a long shot because the bullet just goes missing in the body.
Well, it ricochets throughout the body, and he's likening it to a BB gun, basically.
Right.
And I do think we all, and I'm going to say here, I think we all support background checks. We all support, the guns and weapons shouldn't fall into people's hands that have a mental issue that whatever that is.
Oh, sure. But there's already background. When's the last time you bought a gun without a background check, Tom?
Well, we're in California.
Yeah.
Other states are a little bit leaner than ours.
They are. I'm okay with slowing down the process.
I'm okay
making sure
checks.
weapons get into the right hands, not the wrong hands. But we all know they're going to end up in the wrong hands, regardless of what you have.
When you
Even
have
if there was
millions of them already out there, it is what it is. They're out there.
And there again, when we talking ghost guns and stuff like that, I mean, I think that it should go through the system. I think people need to be responsible.
Well, the thing is, even if they de-arm the citizens that are responsible and respectful, they're never going to de-arm the criminals. Even if they outlaw guns entirely in the U.S., it'll never happen because it'll come across the border.
Well, the first instance we see of murder in the Bible was a rock.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, there's a lot more.
It's not the only weapon. The problem is not the tool. The problem is the person.
Yeah, everyone wants to blame AR-15s because they call them assault rifles, which, what you brought up earlier, the M1 carbine, it's a World War II gun, and it's just a long rifle, but you can shoot it just as fast as you can shoot an AR-15. You can shoot a lever-action gun faster, or as fast as you can shoot a semi-auto AR-15. I've done it. I've used them. You can shoot a handgun just as fast. And then what's ironic is the AR-15 shoots a .223 caliber bullet. That is substantially smaller than a M1 carbine or a 357, a 30-30, something like that. That's a lot bigger bullet, actually.
It is. Well, I love that.
Well, but the agenda isn't, hey, let's take. I mean, they can't wholesale say what they really want to say is let's take away all the guns from the law-abiding citizens. Yeah. Which is what they really want to do. They're like, oh well, let's go after this and do it incrementally because if they did it wholesale, then they're going to have such an uprising that they'll never be able to handle it.
Yeah, sure. And I think there again, I'm going to go back because I think this is some of the roles that I have is like we need to have conversation.
Yeah.
Intelligent conversation, informed conversation, and not just react to something, and I think, if that's the way, it's going to be, I mean, there's a ton more things that you could just react to and come up with the wrong solution. I think conversation, that's one of the things that I love about, I love people. You guys know I do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, across the board, but I'd love to have conversation with individuals. I haven't known a person that I haven't sat down with and we've just sat down and talked, and your audible level doesn't go to the screaming side or the crazy side, but you basically toss and you discuss what you feel and why you feel that way. That I haven't learned something, but I also have been able to impart something too, and I think that's a great place to be for society, and that's what I hope to keep promoting.
What is unique about a conversation is there's a difference. Like right now, you hear the current administration go and talk for 20 minutes, and they give their case, and then you have, you'll have the GOP, you'll have the other side kind of give their talking point, and the problem is they're not talking apples to apples. This morning, I was listening to an update from one of Biden's updates this morning or yesterday. And one of the reporters asks a simple question. She says, Elon Musk has a little bit of fear in the market right now. He thinks that, a potential recession is looming. Well, we all know it. Yeah. But anyways, she says, what are your concerns? Because he's cutting 10% of his employees, I believe. And what I hear when I hear that, I'm like, okay, well, even that said, like I go to this book called Lean Thinking. To run a business, you have to be a lean manager of your company. So that's what I think he's probably trimming the fat of his company. Should be done. And then Biden's response, and you could watch it. It was this morning. Biden's response was, Ford's really boosting production. And do you not realize that Elon Musk just built the biggest, highest producing factory in the world? Like, you're not even going to give, he's cutting 10%, but he's not saying that he's not investing in the market or the economy. He's doing more for production than any automaker in the world right now.
Well, it's funny, Mike and I were talking earlier, because I helped guide a international agribusiness firm through Chapter 11, reorganization. And one of the things that we were able to do when we reviewed all the department is the departments that were running lean and mean were surviving, and you had to cut back the other ones that wasn't.
So he's trimming the fat. But the point is, so she asked a question, what are his thoughts about the market and the economy? And his answer is, oh, well, Ford's boosting their production. Okay, well, that's not, so is Elon. But the point is, what do you, And it's like they're not answering questions. It's not apples to apples. Like 1 + 1 is 2. It's like 1 + 1. Well, if you add another one and then add another one, it could be 4. It's like, well, that's not what I asked. I said, what is 1 + 1?
Well, and I think there's a lot of things that you can do to add automation, which will reduce costs. One thing you can't is labor. You know, the labor is always, if they're pushing the labor up, that's always going to be a consistent cost, and that's going to be hard for businesses to deal with, like Elon or anybody else who's in business right now.
Right.
You hit a recession, and I'm telling you, it's you lose a lot of companies. I have a friend whose sisters had a wine bar in Ventura. Just found out they went out of business. You know, through the pandemic. It was a just nice little family restaurant, wine bar, and cheese and crackers and things. They were doing great, and all of a sudden, boom, they're out of business.
Yeah.
You know, they've lost all their investment, and it was just a sad story to hear.
Right.
But they're going to have to recoup that somehow. I mean, it's just going to be.
Yeah. Speaking of sad stories, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial came to a close this week.
Yeah. You heard me talk about that last week. I'm Team Johnny.
Well,
and justice for Johnny was served.
I wasn't team anybody until the verdict came out, and I read it, and I was like, "What the heck?" Because they both technically won, because she won $2 million. He got $15 million.
Well, I think the attorneys are the ones who won the
I
verdict.
think
that's true.
Well, what it is,
that's always true.
I don't think that she won. I think that she just like clawed and caught some skin on the way out.
She won a judgment.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a credit line on a debit.
But as it relates to Depp versus Heard, Depp for sure won.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
He got the overall on that because he's like, look, it's not the way that you said it was, and that's all I'm trying to get out.
Well, and the future will predict that, because I just got to say this, man. I don't want my dirty laundry to come out like that.
Right.
It's
tough because you can't unhear it.
It's just one of those points that you're like, it's forever out there, and really, honestly, that's who people believe you are. For people like me, I'm not. I've watched some of the movies Johnny Depp's done, but with her, I haven't. But it almost leaves you with a kind of a misguided judgment, because that's not all her either. I mean, there's great stuff with her, and there's great stuff with Johnny. Sure. There again, I'm a believer in people,
right?
Well, and a believer in the fact that we believe Christ came to help people, to heal people, and that's what my hope is that everything leads towards that. Yeah. And I know it doesn't.
And to that point, there's life and death in the tongue.
Yes, there is. And we
what
heard
you say does have effect.
Yes. And so as much as you win, man, when you turn up that kind of dirt, mud, what are you going to do?
I think it's interesting how a lot of people are coming out and saying that this is a big blow to the women's rights movement. And like, when you look at that, you're like, someone that's lying, losing their case, like, how is that a blow to women's rights?
Yeah.
Well, there were so many people that I think might have been behind the scenes pushing.
Yeah.
And they're saying a lot of social media influenced the decisions and stuff like that. The fact is, there just wasn't evidence to support her claims.
And it played out on internet and the news. And I think that's something that I think a lot of people caught on to, because it became a sensation.
Yeah.
And
it makes you wonder what type of reaction would they have gotten if they would have publicized the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, right? Yes. Like they aired this out, and you saw the world is rallying around things right now.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting that you say that, because Ludavia, my wife, obviously they know who my wife is, but for you watching,
great lady.
She
keeps him in line.
She does. She tries. But she always makes a point to say, hey, when they're saying look over here, a lot of times something else is going on over here. Yeah. They're just trying to distract you.
Sleight of hands.
Yeah.
We all love to go to magicians, and you're always trying to watch the other hand. Okay, he's doing it. How is he doing it?
Yeah.
There always is.
So we were having a conversation yesterday, and she was telling me, hey, I'm going to be going to Target. I'm going to be going to all these places. And she says, like it's Pride Month. Right?
Oh, yeah.
They have all this big stuff on display. Mm-hmm. She's like, I don't want to take my kids to that. Right. And I'm like, well,
it's a great talking point.
Yeah. Can we keep our kids from that? And she's like, for a whole month? I was like, yeah, good point. So we decided, hey, we're going to go proactive, and we're going to have a conversation with the kids. And instead of like,
and I'm huge with that.
Being reactive.
I love, there again, it's conversation.
Yeah.
And you have to be age appropriate. I get that.
And I want to make a point of clarification for anybody watching to this. I'm not saying like, hey, whatever. As a Christian, it says, that stuff is a sin. However, we love everyone, and I want to say Christ's love is the first thing priority. Right?
I think a message that the church sends sometimes is misinterpreted.
Yeah.
The church sends a message that we don't like. You got to say it. The church is known for more of the things we're against than what we're for. We're for people. The Bible says you got to hate the sin.
Yes.
And that sin is missing the mark. You got to love the sinner.
But they often leave out the second part.
Well, I know, but I think that's the important thing. As you say, I remember I used to say this, and I've said it from the pulpit before. I remember seeing my first street preacher in Venice, and on the sign he had, the wages of sin are death. And I'm like, yeah, but the finish of that verse is, but the grace through Jesus Christ is eternal life. So I went out and looked behind the sign. He goes, what are you doing? I go, I'm looking for the good part of the verse. You're given the bad news, but there is a good part that eternal life is through Jesus Christ.
I think, and we just recorded a video the other day for the Daily Freedom site, and we were talking about how a lot of people like to overcomplicate and overwhelm Christianity by rules and regulations and all this stuff.
It's a race to zero.
It causes people to step away from faith rather than closer to faith.
That's why I like to have people know more what we're for. Well, we're for people.
Christianity is simple, right? It says his yoke is easy, his burden is light, right?
We're for people, but we're not against the things that hold people back. Or maybe it's something that isn't good for them. Because then I see in the Bible that God says these things aren't good for you, but these things are. And that's what I want to. I want to pursue the things that are going to lead for something that I think is going to be attributed to maybe a legacy of like, hey, man, Tom loved people. Tom was for people. He wasn't for the way people lived their lives.
Yeah, right. And so to your point though about the gay pride, you don't have to be for it, but you also don't have to so like here's the example that I think of, like, okay, so you can be gay and that affects me in no way, and sure you can be living in sin, but do you know how many Christians are living in sin whenever they maybe lustful relationships, or they're just watching pornography every night? It's like that's living in sin, and no sin is really greater than another. To an extent,
let's drop a big one: lying.
Yeah.
Just it's like the Bible calls that a sin.
But I think my
gluttony. Boom. I mean, you drop those truth bombs out there, and people are like, "Well, that doesn't pertain to me."
Pride,
pride.
Name it.
Yes, I mean anger.
But
I was an anger guy. I could still go into anger.
My point, and this is what I discussed with my kids. I'm like, hey, you don't go and see people promoting murder. You don't see people going promoting doing drugs and doing all this other stuff. And so, like, for me, and that's why I prepare my kids, like, hey, we're to be in the world, but not of the world.
Well, Jesus said it: love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Right.
I mean, as we go out there, I mean, we're supposed to love people, and there's sometimes we have to say we don't agree with you. I've ended many conversations. We're just going to have to agree to disagree.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So you have that conversation with your kids. How does that conversation look? What do you say? What do you do?
Well, for us, and it has to be age appropriate, right? But I have young kids like you, and we start with hey, what does the Bible say, right? And we start with hey, God's original intention for the rainbow was this, right? As a promise to His people to never destroy the earth by a flood, right? But Satan likes to take and twist things of God and pervert them. Right. Yep. And that's what you're going to see as you go into the world, and just be prepared, because don't start thinking this thing is acceptable just because it's in your face doesn't make it acceptable.
And you know what I noticed? 5%, and not even 5, it's actually substantially less, like 3% of the population controls 97%. So 3% of the uniqueness is what we'll call the LGBTQ. 3% of the population actually manipulates, not necessarily, they control the narrative for the 97%. So like the inclusion of the restrooms, you're catering to 3%. I'm not saying that I'm picking a side. Like, I'm saying I don't want a boy in my daughter's restroom, hands down. I will say that.
I agree.
But what I'm saying is you're catering to 3%. Don't you think it'd be easier just to add another bathroom and have it called blank?
Well, you know what?
Instead of make 97%.
Make it a family bathroom that has one stall, so you only go in one at a time.
Oh, those already exist.
I know.
Was it good enough?
But and I don't want to say we can oversimplify this. I'm just saying that as you're out there in the world, if somebody asks me my opinion, I'm gonna tell you my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna go up and say, and be on them about a choice they make, because people make choices every day that I don't agree with.
But by the same token, they shouldn't be forced in our face either.
Well, I agree. Well, that's why
that's what I'm saying. By the 3% controls the
I love this book written by our senior pastor called Tribal Influence. The idea is that everybody's going to belong to a tribe.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean Native American. It just means people that you're going to click with. I mean, Mike, you and I belong to a tribe as long as Alex and Nathaniel. We're all IT guys. When Judge McNamara came on the lunch break show, we got tied up in 80-column Hollerith cards. Scott Winkler just tried to throw the yellow card on
glazed over.
because I'm a nerd on the inside or geek, and I'm a jock on the outside.
Yeah.
But I can go to X's and O's, and I could run that gamut. So, but not everybody goes that way. I mean, Scott's a defense attorney, and he's like, guys, get off this subject because no one understands what you're saying. But that's a tribe. That conversation isn't for everybody. I'm a jock. I mean, there again, I've done anabolic steroids. I've done everything you can do with PEDs. I'm not saying I can condone it. When kids come up in the gym, they'll say, hey, want to talk about, the new drug is Trin. And I go, man, that's just a bad drug. It's a strong drug. It's a bad drug. Are you sure you want to go down the rat hole that I did? And ended up with kidney disease and tanning from the sun. I got skin cancer. They make different choices. Right. And I think when other people in other people's lives, when people come and ask you, you can give them an experience. Hey, that works for me or didn't work for me.
Well, I think that's funny that you say that, because Matt White, and he was on our lunch break show, came in the other day, and he's in DJ, right? So Matt and Alex and Nathaniel were having this conversation, and this is rare for me because a lot
they nerded out on sound.
But I'm vocal, and I'm usually at the foreground, and I'm not, because just by nature of who I am, and they were having this conversation. I was like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Well, I mean, there again, if we want to talk stuff in people's lives, I can go on a rant about PEDs. PEDs are killing. I came from a sport that I loved and was very successful at, and we just had another bodybuilder die. 37-year-old. We're waiting for an autopsy.
Am I the only one that doesn't know what PED is?
Performance enhancing drugs.
Oh, yeah. Never mind. I know what those are.
They're just saying, they're killing people.
So let me ask you this.
No,
excuse me.
Off topic. They're not killing people. It's the misuse of them that are causing deaths.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But so do you see right now that there's a trend, and this is relevant, but this is right now it seems like the culture is kind of becoming more of a gym culture today than it was previous.
No,
is that accurate or inaccurate?
No, it's crazy because I got to ride the fitness wave.
Which was the
late 70s, 80s, right?
Okay,
I was
but then
in the old gym
it went down. Do you think it's coming back?
I think fitness in general is coming back. What a lot of people saw in the 70s, 80s was you develop muscles. So everybody went that direction. And everybody realizes that you have to do PEDs or an extreme amount of something to develop larger muscles. I mean, you just do. Some people are more genetically gifted, but when people jump into the PEDs, it does. People now are interested in fitness, cardiovascular, and there's a meridian of ways that they're doing it now. My wife loves fitness classes. She belongs to Orange Theory, and my daughter belongs to Motion. So it's just a different way of stimulating muscles, and also the best thing to do is cardiovascular. I ended up with heart issues because of anabolic steroids, which is a PED, because they harden arteries, they harden veins, and my valve has an issue. I mean, I can name over and over things. I mean, I did a lot of things that helped me get stage 4 kidney disease, and I'm down to stage 2 now. But I mean, when they look at me, they're just like, Tom, your performance enhancing drugs got you to this point.
Yeah. That's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
We covered a lot.
We did.
We ranted way too much.
Yeah, but I want to say in closing, you guys may agree, you may disagree with what we have, but I want you to know again, and I want to reiterate this: like we come in love, and we want to have just an open conversation, dialogue.
Well, there again, and I'm not wanting to say because we mentioned the current administration's leader. quite a bit. But there again, I don't think you can either stand on either side and say either party's great.
I don't think that he even knows what party he is. If we're being honest,
That's
my
Kyle's
thoughts.
rant. But I'm just saying, I love everybody from every side of the aisle.
Yeah.
I love people. Am I opinionated on what I would like to see in America? I think I'm a conservative, which I do see the benefits of that. But but as we're out there, I want people to realize we're coming at this from different sides. But I see a point. I love to be around people. I love to sit down and have conversations, especially if it doesn't develop into an argument.
Yeah.
I think when people raise their voice or start to maybe get threatening in a way, I don't think that's under control. And I do believe the Bible says we're supposed to have self-control. And I even want to do that in a conversation. I hate to be set up. Well, I know we've all been set up, especially in our business now that we delve into the podcasting or
media
or live, So.
Yeah. So I just want to, say thank you guys for watching. Go check us out on Lunch Break, also Lunch Break Podcast, which we do every single week.
Audiences.
And
it's a different format.
It is. It's just a conversation. So as we go out, I want to thank Alex for being producer today, Joanna for being production assistant, Nathaniel for being supervising producer, and MLH Solutions for production, distribution, and marketing. And that's all we have for today.
Can I ask our producer, Alex, who's up for lunch break this week? We'll watch us and we'll tell you.
Yeah, we just released Phil McLaughlin.
Phil McLaughlin. I just
this
didn't
week.
know.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah. Jimmy Cherry.
We have the deputy fire chief.
So thank you guys for watching. This has been a 511 Media Group production. Have a great day.